Do not stop! I'm about to be called upon.
It's a bit over the top, don't you think?
Hurry! They're gathering their avatars now.
Is coming up in the spiritual plane in the next few weeks. Almost the whole world now knows about what's coming up on April 8th, that we're having this solar eclipse. And there's been a lot of people talking about different things and concerning it. And of course, it's a big deal astronomically. And of course, down to the centuries, eclipses and comets, things like that have always been considered to be omens and signs of incredible dark spiritual power. So again, you can imagine that this is going to be used by the evildoers to amp up their power to try and attack. But there's something different about this that many of you may not know. April 8th every year is a major feast of some satanic groups that are called Thelema, which is the Greek word for will. They're followers of Aleister Crowley, whom we've talked about numerous times on this channel. He was probably the most evil Satanist of the 20th century. And what happened was, just real quickly, in 1904, he had an experience where his wife, he had just recently married this woman, Rose Kelly, and they were on their honeymoon in Egypt, in Cairo. And they were on their honeymoon in Egypt, in Cairo. And she went into a trance and started delivering this document, which is called the Liber Alvel Legis, the Book of the Law. And this was on April 8th, 1904. And for 3 days, she sat there and delivered, quote unquote, 3 chapters to this, it's like a satanic Bible. And I've talked about it more in other places. I don't want to spend the time on it now. But the important thing is, because of this, later on in his life, Crowley died in 1947, but he declared those 3 days to be sacred, holy days for the Thelema cult. And they're called the equinox of the gods, these 3 days. And notice that the first day of this satanic feast is when the solar eclipse is. So this kind of creates a double whammy, if you will, because while not all satanic groups are followers of Crowley, a large number of them are. And I used to be a Crowley. I used to be a member of the OTO back in the 70s before I got out of that and Yeshua got me saved. But so I know all this stuff. And I want you to understand that there's an incredibly dark energy going on from this equinox of the gods. It's not an astronomical equinox. Crowley, who is really an egomaniac, he just decided, I'm going to make my own equinox. And so he made this into a major feast day of the Thelemic calendar. And all sorts of rituals and things are done. And because it's coinciding with this solar eclipse, it's especially high energy evil. And Christians and intercessors need to be aware of this stuff, because it's not just going to be another equinox. It's not just going to be another solar eclipse, which happens, every few years or so. It's going to be a confluence of 2 dark powers. Now, on the other hand, Jeremiah warns us, the prophet, that we are not to be dismayed at signs in the heavens, because this is what the heathen do. But what we do need to be not necessarily dismayed about, but aware of, is that the heathen, quote unquote, who include, black magicians and Satanists and witches, all view this time as a time where they really amp up their rituals, their spiritual energies, and in the case of black magicians, their curses. So be prepared, starting on the equinox, the vernal equinox, which is March 21st, all the way through the end of this equinox of the gods, which would end on April 10th, that there's going to be some really heavy weather spiritually. So let me suggest this. A lot of believers are unaware to a degree of the power of fasting. And I think with all of what's going on in the world, with all of what is happening in the next few weeks that I've just outlined, we need to really do what we can in terms of both prayer and fasting and intercession.